Welcome to the Aligned Powerhouse, the podcast for executive women who are done leading from burnout and ready to rise from alignment. I'm your host, Dr. Brittany McGeehan, licensed psychologist, high performance and mindset coach, and guide for high achieving women who are ready to lead, live, and love without abandoning themselves. Here, we unpack the nervous system truths, mindset shifts, and emotional patterns that drive your leadership so you can build power from the inside out. Let's get into it. All right. Hello. Welcome back to today's episode. Guys, today, I say this like every single time, I am feeling so excited about today's episode. Today, I am going to pull the curtain back just a little bit on my retreats that I run, and more specifically, this most recent retreat that I ran just a few weeks ago. Before I do that, I wanted to just really briefly thank you so much. I feel like I do this a lot when I'm opening, but I get really, honestly, like kind of emotional whenever I think about how connected I feel to my audience and the absolute gift that this podcast is. First and foremost, it is a really beautiful outlet and way of delivering my message to a wider audience. And for that, I am so grateful. But something that's really unique about this community that we are building is that it has continued to run and build without me pouring a whole ton of time, which is a very, very scarce resource in my life right now, raising a 2-year-old, almost a 4-year-old, running the business and finding time for my marriage, all of the things. And so that is really a big part of what shows up for me whenever I sit down and I think about what message do I want to deliver to you all, because your time, like if time is one of my most valuable resources, that is also how I perceive it for you as well. And the fact that something of value is delivered and you feel connected to it enough to continue to come back every week is just, it's not lost on me. And so I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, continuing to support this message, but also share it. And I can see that through like the numbers, right? This entire, it's a really cool part of my platform. Yes. But also just, it feels like coming and sitting down and having coffee with a friend. And so thank you so much for being here. Okay. Going to attempt to focus here. So today we are talking all about this retreat that I run. So in its current iteration, it is called the Elevated Leader. And I will tell you, there's going to be, basically, I'm going to share with you some of my takeaways. Essentially what happens throughout the process is that I go into sort of retreat bubble 1 to 2 weeks ahead of time, where I'm really plugged into like retreat participants process. Then there's actual retreat, and then there's recovery on the other end. That's about a week to 2 weeks, right? And within the recovery time, I always have takeaways that I think are very applicable to my community as a whole, regardless of whether or not you have done a retreat in the past, or you're interested in doing one in the future, or you never are going to actually set foot in this space. There are lessons, there are reflections, there are downloads that I get from these spaces that I think are so important for my community as a whole to hear. So that's really what I'm sharing with you today. I've got 3 reflections that were really on my heart to be shared with a broader audience. And that's what we're going to jump into. So there's going to be a tactical portion of this, but this is going to be a little bit more storytelling than we usually do. Okay. So first and foremost, I kind of want to talk about like where these retreats have evolved from, because I'm going to hit on this concept called the parallel process. And essentially what this means is that my own personal development and growth has tremendously impacted the growth of my business, the growth of these retreats, all the things. So if we go back however many years ago, to the very first time that I was running a retreat. And at that time it really wasn't a retreat. It was an intensive. And I was running them out of my office and I was running them like a full weekend. And it essentially was a binder full of information with essentially anything and everything that I had gathered over my own journey. And I was sharing this with the women who were coming in for these intensives, and I loved them. At the time when I really started these, I was also wearing stress, burnout, doing everything on my own and being the best at what I do, and like being like identifying as the only one who could really do it for the women that I worked with. I really wore that as like a badge of honor at that time. I loved being the person that these women would seek out, or that other clinicians would seek out, and they would send me the rowdier cases, for lack of better terms, right? I was the one who could jump in, push past, see all the things. I could keep up with it. And I was overfunctioning in like every area of my life. Okay. And I, like with a lot of pride, would call these intensives essentially boot camps, right? And on the back end, I was the container, I was logistics, I was caretaker, I did the food, I did all of these different things. Now, I also did have it down to a science, right? Like a few years in, I knew exactly where I was going to get food. I knew exactly where I was going to get this and that and whatever. But a really big primary characteristic of these weekends for myself on the personal end was that they were so much work. Now, I really enjoyed the results that I was getting my clients, because if you think about showing up and doing like therapy boot camp for 3 days, it's going to be really powerful, right? And that's really where I think I fell in love with this work. One, you're also doing it with another person. So the first few times I did this, it started with like essentially a really long one-to-one. But as I introduced additional people into these containers, what I found was that these women actually helped to hold the space together. And that part didn't take quite as much work for me, right? I also found that dynamics would play out in the way that they do in group therapy. Whatever it is that this person was working on, this would play out real time in the intensive, in the retreat experience itself. And we got to work through these dynamics in the controlled atmosphere of an office. And it was phenomenal, right? So I really started to move into this process of bringing the right people into the right containers at the right time. Now, here is the parallel process. Here's the thing that I want you to see and hear and all of it, right? Is at this time, everything lived and died by me. And if I'm being so honest, I liked it that way. I couldn't conceptualize a world where someone else could effectively help me hold the space and do it the way that I did it, or did it up to my standards, or did it good enough. And this is a lot of what my clients were coming in to work on, was the overfunctioning, was the God complex, was the difficulty with intimacy, right? And so really what I want you to take away from this like very beginning where we started, is sometimes the thing that we call leadership, sometimes the thing that we say is being a high achiever, a peak performer, whatever, is actually just a nervous system adaptation to over responsibility, over functioning, over whatever, right? Now, I want to like directly contrast this to what retreats look like today. So honestly, one of my biggest takeaways, and I'm going to get into this, is that there was actually so much support this most recent round, because at this point, with the particular team, so the team is assembled based upon who is coming in to the retreat, right? And it's just like a whole big, but the entire thing is a chess game, because I need the right women in the room, I need the right dynamics in the room, and then I need the right team to support and pull for appropriate dynamics within that space as well, okay? So you compare Me being solo, I was running things in conference rooms. I was running them in my office, trying to get a little bit more space to move, right? Then it was like, okay, now let's go do this activity down here in the conference room. I was ordering from Uber Eats all weekend, trying to find healthier places. That way we weren't doing fast food all weekend. I was picking up breakfast tacos, doing fruit, and I look at that season with so much adoration and joy because and this is a total like sidebar. I think there's really something going on with business owners right now where a lot of people don't want to do the work. They want it to look glamorous like right now. And they're not really willing to get their hands dirty. And we say that this is in service of, and myself included, right? I was literally having like this whole big breakdown, gosh, like 2 weeks ago. No, that was retreat. It would have been, it probably was like a few months ago. I've just like lost time. But I was complaining. I was being so crabby about being in the messy middle and still being in this phase of taking data on certain elements of my business, right? But the reality is that's where you have to stay. And it doesn't look like this really glamorous, beautiful thing when you start. So I look at this season with so much adoration, so much gratitude to myself that I was willing to put in the reps, put in the work, and just like dig deep and get it done however I was going to get it done. And also so much profound gratitude to every client who walked in that space with me, right? They have been a part of it from the end. At one point I had a supervisor who was coming and was helping me to hold space. But I mean, oh my gosh, we would be in the office until sometimes like 11 o'clock, just trying to get this stuff done. And I poured time and attention over it versus now you fast forward several years. And not only has the information that I deliver been cut probably into like an eighth in terms of what is actually content wise being presented, because every single time I was iterating, but also last year I spent so much time coming up with my own intellectual property. So now it is my process, right? Now this is, you are coming for Dr. B's, like, my 5-step modality to identity expansion, right? Which that is even vulnerable. But anyway, like the contrast is insane. Like this retreat is a machine, and it's a machine from the get-go, and everyone has their roles. There's strong operational support. There's strong boots on the ground support. There is strong catering support. There's team meetings. There's debriefs. There's all these things that are happening in the background. And honestly, this round in April was probably the easiest that it has been. And I mean, as it rightfully should, right? The idea is that these things are going to continue to get easier and easier and iterate every round. Excuse me. And essentially the way that I conceptualize the level of support that I have provided myself, and part of what I tell people, right, when they are paying, because this is, I'll not sit here and like sugarcoat it. This is a 5-figure investment for a weekend retreat. And what I tell people is that you have to come in more or less ready to receive the level of support that you are going to receive, because what clients see when they sign up is they see a weekend retreat led by Dr. Brittany. What they immediately don't see is that it's like me being held up by an entire force, right? There is a team holding me up. And that's huge, because if we compare this to parenting, and not that I'm out to like reparent the world through my work or whatever, but there is a reparenting component here of your nervous system has to experience what care and support truly feels like. And if we're being honest, like parenting is really excessive. Like 24/7, it's a lot. And this is why we have to have a village. We have to have your team. You have to have your people. Okay. So this is huge, that when you come in, you are not just being supported by me. I am the brain. I am the lead, but you ask any executive right now, in particular the executives, so not the ones who are boots on the ground, the executives, they will tell you, yes, the direction that you are going is very important. But do you know what is even more important is making sure that your people are cared for. They have what they need in order to continue to move you forward, because this ship doesn't sail without you. So all of this is really playing into the parallel process, because this is a lot of what showed up for me, honestly, in this April retreat. Now, let me tell you, if you have your journal, and if you don't, now is the time to hit pause, go get your journal and come back. Because if you don't know what the parallel process is already, I'm going to unpack it here, Spark Notes version, and it's really going to change your life. So the parallel process is a concept by within which essentially different environments, different scenarios, different areas of your life are mirroring one another. Now, here's what I mean by that, is that you hear it in the trajectory, right? The growth of these retreats. They started with me leading them, executing them, doing them. That is how I moved through the world, was with a lot of overfunctioning. And that was still a really strong area of growth for me. I'm really good at systems. So that was already coming into play, where it was pretty wash, rinse, and repeat, but there was still a lot of overfunctioning. And as I figured out how to delegate, as I figured out how to continue to narrow in on who it was that I was going to work with, as I continued, quite frankly, to take risks and increase my rate, as it aligned with my season of life, as it aligned with my expertise, as it aligned with my clientele, I was then able to grow these to where now, the only way into my world, with the exception of my content, my email newsletter, unless you're going to come and be and consume my work and my world through my social, right, or my podcast, the only way in is through this retreat. And I do that because I protect my time like no one's business. So I am not taking on a private client. I'm not allowing you into my community, into my people, unless you show me that you're willing to put in the work first, and we go knock that out in a weekend, right? So there's that element of it. But the growth is that as I grew, the business grew and it expanded, right? That's the parallel process. The parallel process is that even before I was doing any of this, I was sorting stuff out in my marriage. There were so many elements of overfunctioning and codependency that we really had to iron out in order for me to be able to step in and provide the level of care as a psychologist at that time, and support my clients in the same process. There's a saying in therapy that says you can only take people as far as you can go, but you can literally apply this concept of the parallel process to any area of your life. You look at your business, and if there's a bottleneck, in particular, if that bottleneck is you, I guarantee you have control issues in your marriage. Probably because you think that you're the best at everything and you think everyone should do things based on your way. Hands up if you feel personally victimized by that truth. Me too. Okay, but this is truly everything just mirrors itself, right? We think that when we step into our homes, we think that when we step into the office, we magically become this different person. And so I will hear all the time, hey, home life is really strained. It's a little bit of a mess, but in terms of work, I'm killing it. I'm doing really, really well. And maybe I'm a little burned out. Maybe my team really doesn't show up the way I want them to, but in general, I'm doing really well, right? The reality is there's always a level that you've not tapped into if you see this mix match of resources being poured out. So the parallel process was I was really reflecting on it a ton over the weekend, because again, the level of support and the team that I have assembled, they're just phenomenal, to the point where, there were moments where essentially I pop in, I did a few trainings, I would walk through a few exercises, and then my operations, director, team captain of just so many things in my life right now. Her name is Asia. She's incredible. She is operations. She's also creative. She's also movement. She's also our artsy person right now. She would say, hey, why don't you go take a nap? hey, why don't you go have a snack? And I would go and do that. Sometimes I would resist it. But it was magic, right? And on the other end of this, the women that I was working with, they were also learning how to receive this kind of support, how to allow themselves to be seen at this level of depth and to really just let themselves go, right? These two things, they hinge on one another, because in retreat, you're being pulled into energetic relationship with me and vice versa. And so I always say that you are like the average, you are a reflection of the people who you are in spaces with. And so this is a really important component of this. And it was just also like insane, right? Because you think about what pulls people into retreat. So I will tell you, I always tell people there are two things that are going to push someone enough, like far enough into their pain point to be willing to hire me, because I am not a walk in the park, meaning I ask a lot of my clients. I show up really hard for my clients. But the work that I do, it works for better and for worse. And it's really important that people have that in the back of their minds, and they understand that if you're coming to me because home life is strained or business is not picking up and moving the way you want it to, we are going to shift that. And you have to be ready for what that means. Right? Because that includes a real reckoning, a real dynamic shift is going to have to happen, because I am someone who moves very fluidly and quickly in my own life. When something isn't working, like, we're going to work on it and we're going to move forward. Right? So the entire, like, this group of women, if we're going to paint with like a really broad brush, a theme that they were working on was not receiving support and allowing more of themselves to be seen exactly as they are, in the messy, in the loud, in the being willing to like not carry other people's stuff that's been put on them. There's this element, there's this piece in the retreat that we sit and we do what is called chair work. It is like the bane of all of my clients. They all know what it is. Those who've like come through the retreat, it's almost like this like rite of passage that everyone's like, did you do your chair work? But it's really important, because a primary feature of this offer, the reason I like it so much, is there really is this like understanding that the clientele that I work with, they're smart. They do not lack tools. Typically what is getting in their way is that they are trying to process an issue, a problem that didn't originate within them. So there's this concept called carried emotions. And it is the idea that if you are around someone who's not actively doing the work, who is, meaning they're not feeling their feelings, they're not feeling, dealing, and healing, right? Like, and if they are not taking accountability for their own experiences, then the most vulnerable person in that room is the one who is going to absorb that material. 9 times out of 10, that person is my client, and they end up calling me like 40, 50 years later, okay? And so really the primary issue is that you're dealing with something that you inherited from mom or dad or grandparent, and that was passed on to them, and they haven't taken accountability for it. Chair work is the way that we actually give that back, and we do it in a timely manner. This is really important because it is very challenging. Like, you cannot feel your way out of a carried emotion. So really quick, this is not in my outline, but I'm like, if you have your journal, I want you to ask yourself, is there an emotion that is pulling you toward a behavior that doesn't necessarily feel aligned, or is keeping you stuck in a cycle that you're just like, this doesn't make sense for me? Guilt is a big one. Carried guilt. Guilt is like a huge one for my clients. And it is this idea that like, so if mom and dad were not in connection with their healthy guilt, because guilt just says they did something wrong, right? I feel guilty when I raise my voice with my children. I feel guilty when I am not taking care of myself, and then all of a sudden I lose it at home as a mother, right? Like, guilt just says, hey, something needs to be shifted. Well, if a parent cannot admit that they were wrong in the way that they did something, the child will carry that guilt. And they are going to feel it when they go to take better care of themselves. Okay, you picking up what I'm like putting down here? I want you to write this down. If there is an emotion that doesn't logically make sense. Now, this doesn't mean that you're not valid for feeling it. It doesn't mean that like you're being gaslit. It means like logically, why are you feeling guilty about doing something that is good for you? Right? If you are not causing harm, then chances are this is a carried emotion. And this is huge. And this is a really big feature of this retreat is like going through and saying, okay, so carried shame is impacting here, carried guilt is impacting here. Chair work is where we go to like do the thing. Okay. It is where we go to energetically give back what was not yours in the first place. And it's really, really important part of this process. I will tell you, this round really invited me to dig even deeper in surrendering to the process, which is like the entire story of my business right now, and enjoying the messy middle. And I wouldn't say that I enjoy chair work by any means. I enjoy the other end of it. But it's a process. It's really hard. It's really scary. It's all these things. But the really big element that I was like journaling about that evening was literally just the beauty and the necessity and watching the magic that can unfold when you get really, really clear about your connection with the divine and you are willing to allow yourself to trust the process and allowing the process to not look like what you think it was going to look like. Meaning you are going to stay in some seasons of life a little bit longer than you think. Or perhaps there are elements of your business that you don't realize are actually working for you rather than against you. And it's just a mindset shift and an issue of trusting yourself. Okay. So really surrendering this element of control, I think is like life work for me, right? Is dancing with this desire to play God, to feel control, to feel certainty, while at the same time softening into support and acknowledging that as you grow and progress, and if you get the thing that you think you're asking for, it's going to require a different version of you, right? Within this parallel process, I watched this unfold for these women. These women were stepping out of this identity of uncertainty, this identity of I struggle with X, Y, and Z versus I'm actually really incredible at this. I'm actually really incredible at this. And not only do I belong in any room that I walk into, I also am going to go create my own. And it's going to take off. Or it is possible for me to show up for my children, my spouse, my family, and I can be like ferocious when I need to. I can unleash this element of my femininity that is associated with like Athena and war, right? And that doesn't take away from the fact that I am also soft and gentle and phenomenal at my job. But like women are just, and this, this is in here too, right? Like the magic that is women. I love women and the power of women coming together. So years ago, I went and did, oh gosh, what is it called? Where a sweat lodge, and we were working with, I can't remember his name. I cannot remember his name. Oh man. But it was like earth medicine, right? It was one of the most incredible experiences that I've ever had. I've also never been so claustrophobic. And at that time I was really, really deep in my own, trauma work. And there were a lot of people who were coming together for all sorts of reasons. And you went in and there were, I think, 4 different levels to this. And every round it got hotter, right? So you go and you sit inside of a teepee and there's a steam, there's like a fire, whatever pit in the middle with coals, and they are pushing steam into the space and they sit and they tell stories. Well, one of the things that I was so surprised and honored by was I was one of 2 women who were present for this experience. And the man who led the ceremony, he actually sat and he just talked about being honored by a woman's presence. And it was such a gift. Like I had never heard anyone speak about women and the presence of women and the magic that we evoke and bring, right? But as literally being like beings who are capable of bringing life into this world, right? He talked about the magic and the alchemy that is inherent in our process and just our presence from being there. It was the most phenomenal experience that I've ever been honored to have. And it was so powerful. And I think about that experience. I thought about it over this retreat weekend of watching what happens, like the magic. And there's just not a different way to phrase it, right? You can call it fluidity. You could call it unleashing something. Like it is just straight magic to be in a space, particularly with 3 women who are showing up to do the work. But then you add in that there are 2 more to hold the space, right? And there's just so much sacred like medicine within that in and of itself, because every being in this space is coming in with their own alchemy. And so not only am I the one who is holding the space, and I always say that like I feel like I'm dancing with angels whenever I'm in the retreat bubble. And like Asia even she'll be talking to me about like logistics and she's like, "Hey, are you still here?" And I'll be like, "Yeah." And she's like, "No, you're not. You're like off dancing with angels. Like I can no longer contact you." And at that point she's going and she's like making notes. That way we can come back and we can revisit whenever my feet are like back on the ground. Right. But it truly is like a surrender into like this like flow state. I don't know. There might be a different like word for it, but it's just like this place that I dance. And then you insert all of these women into that as well. And they're also bringing in their magic and their flow and their alchemy. And it is incredible to watch them not only show up for themselves, yes, which is insane, but then they are helping to hold one another. And it is just this really beautiful illustration of what I believe life is meant to be, right? What is the quote that talks about like, we're all just walking each other home? Like, I think that is so true, and I think women do it best, right? To experience that maternal, and men are so important as well. It's not about that, but like, there is something so profound about a group of 3 women coming together, in particular when they are anchored by something such as a mother wound, such as difficulty connecting to all elements of their feminine, such as being more comfortable in the space that they take up in the room, or being willing to access the different versions and fullness and depth of their voice. It is just like watching, I like don't even have words for it, right? But it really is like watching a version of like heaven play out on earth. It is the coolest thing in the world. So in terms of, like who comes into these retreats and what am I looking for? And I will say like, this is twofold, because these retreats, I cap them at 3 women. So from like a business perspective, from a profit margin perspective, they're actually very challenging right now, because there's like whatever. I do not believe with this specific type of retreat and type of work, you cannot push even 8 women into the space. And I will tell you, I've never had a business advisor, mentor, or consultant who has not pushed me to do that. And every single time I run this retreat, I am reminded of why I hold to this number 3, right? And I will tell you, here's the secret sauce. Here's the secret sauce, because this is actually something that you can go and you can use in your own groups. I actually also and so like within this, right? I'm not in the 3, although I always joke, I like to like jump in and jump out and whatever, right? Like I want to be included. But in terms of what I'm looking for, it's actually pretty easy in terms of finding like the perfect cocktail of people, right? I'm looking for one with a more masculine and structured energy. I'm looking for another who has a more relational and emotional energy. And then the third should be more adaptive, flexible, a more translational energy. So I'll say this a different way. within my mom group, within the group that I'll be so honest, between them and like this, I had really bad postpartum depression, both times with my kids, actually. And second round, I took this incredible drug called Zurzuvae, which is specific for postpartum depression. Like, tell me why it's taken this long for this thing to exist. It worked for me. It worked with my doctors. You go do your own research. But between Zurzuvae and this group of women, I really truly believe that my experience with motherhood, young motherhood with like infant and baby, it was saved. It was gifted to me because it would have been so easy to fall into the rabbit hole of isolation and fatigue. And instead I had this gift of a group chat that was lighting up at 3 a.m. when all of us were awake feeding our babies. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. Look at my baby. And then 2 seconds later, it was like, what in the world did we do? This is horrible. I'm exhausted. Like, the gift of community and people. But when you look at the formula in this group, now all of us would attribute this group as being a force of God, right? We think that it was a gift. This is how we make meaning of it. We literally met at the kids' swim class and we just decided that we were going to like raise our kids together. But you look at the personality elements that are present. We joke that we have one friend who is very type A. She's got the details. She's got the weather. She has the extra wipes. She has the extra snacks. Like, she is prepared in a really important way when it comes to like bringing however many children we have, golly, 7, out into the wild, right? Someone better have the snacks. And then we have me, and I'm very type B. I do run on type A systems, but like I'm very type B. I'm probably going to show up. Like, literally, we were at the park 2 weeks ago and it was cold. Like, I don't know at the time of this recording, like it's freaking cold and I'm really upset about it. None of my children had jackets. I was crabby because it had taken me forever to get out the door. I show up and I was literally running like an hour and a half late. And so when I got there, they were like, hey, we're going to Chick-fil-A pretty soon. I was like, I'm not going to Chick-fil-A. I just got here. And they kind of like laughed. They were like, okay. Because at the end of the day, if I decided to like stay, it would have been fine, right? Well, like, yeah, no, these women just know me. 5 minutes in, I don't have jackets. My kids don't have jackets. I brought snacks, but we're like not prepared. So yeah, I'm like, hey, can we go to Chick-fil-A now? And we're just kind of laughing because they can see the logistics. They can see the details. They can see the step forward. I just really can't. But anyway, and then, okay, so our third is type C. She is like both. It depends on the day. And she is someone who can like dig deep if she needs to, and bust out the type A tendencies. And she will probably like rally for the team. But then also she can be pretty like go with the flow type B, not have a plan. She really does both. And there's something so magical, right? And you think about this concept, okay, guys, I and this is part of what I was writing about as I was journaling. At the end, I think it was like the Saturday night. So we had done chair work at that point. We had gone for a hike. We had put together like this, it was all these different little things, right? And I was really reflecting on, we are so intentional about building our teams in our businesses. We're so intentional as executives about hiring the right person onto whatever team it is that you're doing, right? We look for all of these pieces. Why do we not then apply this to our relationships? Why do we not apply this to our friendship circles? And not in a, sorry, you're not type B, so you can't be in this group. No, but like as a way of more deeply understanding dynamics that are going to show up within your groups. And then also being more open and more intentional. If you meet someone who sits a little bit different from you, we have a real tendency in our life to shy away from what is different and what we're not familiar with, when in reality, that should actually, I'm like we literally talk about in our mom group, you stick us all together and we're like one big power mom. But it takes all of us, literally takes all of us, right? Like you put us all together, chances are I'm going to like lead the kids into the woods and like over the creek. And these other two women are going to actually look at the creek and be like, and how deep is the creek? And can we actually step on it? And is there a snake in that grass? Let us actually think this through. And I'm like, here we go. Like, it is so important because when you do that, there's more freedom, there's more support. And then you get to like, and this is part of what I really saw unfold in the weekend as well, is that, so a characteristic of a healthy system is that no one is actually stuck in a role. This goes to family roles. This goes to, like friendship roles, whatever. I always say, if you are stuck in one specific role, so if you are a caregiver, if you are the hero, if you are the rescuer, everyone is going to dance into a role at different times. The key is, can you then move out of it? Right? There are days within my group, my mom group, that I turn into the little like type A person, and I've got a system and I've got excitement and I'm like ready to go. There are days when there are days when like one of us is going to show up and like literally toss our kids to the others and be like, peace, right? Like that is so necessary. And that is also part of what I literally saw unfold throughout the weekend, was that these women came in with very important roles. That's why I chose them for this container. That is why they were invited into this container, showed up the way that they did. And by Sunday, they had softened and shifted a little bit in terms of the dynamics and the jobs and the roles that they were playing in the retreat itself. And it's incredible to see, because oftentimes if there is dysfunction, if there's area of growth, it can all be pinned back to the drama triangle. Where are you on the drama triangle? And why do you feel like you can't do something different? Right? And if I can get you to be flexible and courageous enough to step out and disappoint someone, then like we're Gucci, we're good. We are so well on our way to alleviating whatever it is that you feel is not in alignment. And so to watch these phenomenally incredible women who I love them from like the depths of who I am. And to watch them, and I don't even know if they realize they did it, but allowing themselves to really soften into a different type of role, was phenomenal. Right. And then I will say, the climax of any of these retreats, and one of the things I was reflecting on was just the power of returning what isn't yours. Now, I will say, so this is that concept of like carried emotions, right? Inherited responsibility, emotional labor, but like, if you are someone who can really truly get so quick at identifying, oh, this isn't mine, let me do something different, then I always say, like, you are the master of your universe. You have literally unlocked the most profound key that you will ever be handed in this lifetime. Because if there is something telling you that you are not an absolute gift, right? And not like in a narcissistic way, but just in that we all have our own purpose. We all have our own journey. We all have our own contributions to be sharing here. If there's anything getting in the way of telling you that, or saying that you can't pause even as you're pushing toward higher revenue goals, whatever it is, then like it's probably not yours. And if you can get really, really good at identifying, hey, this is where it came from, and I don't have to act on that. Even better, I can go give it back, right? Like at this retreat, give me a call. But like, if you can stop moving from a place of other people's like crap that they have put on you, you truly are a master of your universe. You've unlocked something huge. And getting to watch these women do that, and then watch what had shifted even like 24, 48 hours from this retreat, was insane. Like a lot of times people don't actually need more advice. They definitely do not need more tools, especially like my community here. Like y'all don't need that. You have that. What they really need is a safe enough room for the truth to finally leave their body. Meaning up and out. Meaning, if it is shame that you have inherited, let me give you a container where you can truly sit in that and then allow your body to do what it needs to do to get that up and out of your system, right? So tactical has been sprinkled in here, but I'm going to leave you with a few high level. Okay. So first and foremost, I want you to think about, where are you overfunctioning? Where exactly are you overfunctioning? Where are you still gripping? Because your nervous system is really equating support and safety with control, right? Like these two things just cannot coexist. And so it's like lighting up your nervous system. Get really curious about that. Are you doing that at work? Are you doing that in your marriage? Are you doing that in your sex life? Right? Are you doing that with your friends, with your business? Where are you overfunctioning? Because you are equating control with safety. Second, who are your additional nervous systems? Like, I want you to think about, and I've seen this trend on social media. I find it really exciting. Everyone is talking about, like 2026 is the year that we're going to run our home the way that we run our business. And I think that's fantastic, right? We have had a family SOP binder at this point, I think for like a year, because I'm an absolute psychopath and I love a system. And I had this thought when we started having kids of like, if this works in the business, it's probably going to work at home. And I was introduced to a home manager like years ago, but this concept of we hire nervous systems and then we build community around nervous systems. I have friends I can call on hard days. We have support. We have built the village, right? So who are your additional nervous systems? Third takeaway thing that I want you to be thinking about is, what role are you trapped in relationally? So are you the rescuer? The person who comes back and fixes everything for everyone? Are you stuck in victim? And all victim means is you feel like you don't have a choice. That's literally all that means. Okay. But feeling like things are happening to you rather than for you, and there's nothing you can really do. Or are you stuck in perpetrator? And this is someone who is judgy, is perhaps raising their voice, but is in some way, shape, or form essentially becoming judgmental and going one up, rather than really taking accountability and doing something with it. Chances are, if you are listening, right, friends, like chances are you live in rescuer land. But like, where is this showing up? Is this in your business? Is this with your team? Is this in your marriage? Is this with your kids? Like, where is this? Okay. And then where exactly do you need a better container? Thinking about our different groups, whether that is with friends, whether that is with your like therapy journal or journey people, right? The people who have been united by one common like healing experience. So for example, like in my world, it's called the integration circle. And every single client, person who's done retreat, who is committed to this work, they have the opportunity to be invited into the integration circle. And the integration circle, like we go on vacation together, we plan trips together, we meet monthly to do like a titrated down version of this work. It is ongoing support for people who have been united by this thing. And we continue to want all of it. Right? And we are mothers, we are business owners, we are like just all of the things, and we get to continue to walk together, but that's a very specific container. Or in your business, do you need a stronger mastermind? Do you need this? Do you need that? Right? Like, where in your life do you need the better container? And then I'm going to add another one. I'm going to add another one, guys. So the other one I would say is, are you carrying anything? Or maybe more specifically, where are you carrying something that is not actually yours? So go in and identify, like, where exactly are you making decisions that are not in alignment with who you are or your goals? And is there a chance that that feeling at the root of that behavior is not actually yours in the first place? Getting really clear. Who is this reminding you of? Where did you get this from? Okay. So that's all I have for y'all on today's episode. I hope that it was helpful. I would love to know thoughts, perspectives, all of the things. These are just some of the things that were popping around in my head as we moved through this most recent retreat, every evening. And I hope that you found it helpful. As per usual, thank y'all so much for being here. It really is not lost on me, the absolute gift of your time, and I will see you on the next one. Alrighty, friend, that is all for today's episode of the Aligned Powerhouse podcast. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And do me a favor, if this episode resonated, I want you to share it with another powerhouse woman in your life who is ready to lead and love from a place of self-trust. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a quick rating or review. It really does help more women find this work. New episodes drop every week. Until then, lead with self-trust and let yourself be seen.